Not only was UFC 319 the return to Chicago, Illinois for the first time in over 6 years, not only did it feature Khamzat Chimaev remaining undefeated and becoming the new middleweight champion in the main event, but it featured some very fun fights and some absolutely bonkers knockout victories, and we've got to recap all of that right now. And we start in the co-main event of the evening where Lerone Murphy just put the world on notice and gave Aaron Pico the most brutal welcome party to the UFC that you could imagine. And that is because just 3 minutes and 21 seconds into the very first round of the fight, Lerone Murphy would land a vicious spinning back elbow that would send Aaron Pico to the Shadow Realm and knock him out cold. Lerone Murphy is now 17-0 with a draw, having never lost a fight in his professional career and hasn't looked back since having that draw in his UFC debut back in 2019 at UFC 242 against Zubaira Tukhugov, meaning that he is now riding a 9-fight win streak, and the latter half has been very good with wins over Edson Barbosa, Dan Ige, Josh Emmett, and now the newcomer Aaron Pico. And let me tell you something right now. I was on this betting line from the get-go and can only wish in hindsight that I would have doubled/tripled down on this one, because Lerone Murphy at plus money in general made absolutely 0 sense to me, let alone nearing a plus 160 underdog. I bet him at plus 154. Explain that to me. Aaron Pico is an elite talent that has great power in wrestling. I understand that, but he was never a Bellator champion. He never even challenged for a title in Bellator. He had lost 4 times in Bellator, 3 if you want to take away the injury loss that he had, and never faced nearly the competition that Lerone Murphy had faced, yet he was a near 2-1 betting favorite. It absolutely blew my mind. I never understood it, and this result should absolutely explain my reasoning. Lerone Murphy showed that there are levels to this game and how elite of a featherweight that he truly is, because he is one of, prior to UFC 319 I should say, was one of the most underrated fighters, not only at 145 pounds, but in the entire UFC, and I hope that this performance put everyone on notice, because it absolutely put the champion of the division on notice. Because Alexander Volkanovski just reclaimed his championship back in April with a win over Diego Lopez, and now he wants his first title defense to be against the undefeated Lerone Murphy, and I think it is absolutely what the UFC will do. Dana White pretty much said as such in the post-fight press conference.
Alex Volkanovski said he would like to fight him in December. It's not often you see a champion calling out the challenger. Could be interested.
I love it.
And I think that is one of the championship fights that we will see come December in what will be one of the last fights of the year leading into 2026, and man, does that have me intrigued, because Lerone Murphy is a very high-level striker, and Volkanovski is one of the best fight IQ fighters we've seen in the UFC's history. That is a very fun, interesting, stylistic clash from an X's and O's perspective, and the storylines are there because Volkanovski is looking to defend his title for the first time of his second reign, and Lerone Murphy is looking to remain undefeated and to add himself to the short list of English UFC champions. But funny enough, this wasn't the only spinning back elbow knockout on the night, because one fight prior, Carlos Prates put Geoff Neal to the Shadow Realm with 1 second remaining in the first round with his own spinning back elbow. The Fighting Nerds takeover of mixed martial arts just continues on here, because Carlos Prates absolutely put that loss to Ian Gary way in the rearview mirror with this performance and finish over Geoff Neal, who was ranked number 11 in the welterweight division, and Prates at number 12. He's right in his prime at 32 years old, and all 5 of his UFC victories have been by way of knockout, most of them pretty brutal. He's 22-7 overall and has finished 20 of his 22 victories, with 17 of them by way of knockout. He's smoking cigs on his way to the octagon. Not literally, mind you. He's smoking cigs in the aftermath of the fight during his post-fight press conference. He's got people coming up to the booth, talking to the media, sniffing the smoke in the air, saying, "Who the hell was up here smoking?"
Carlos, what does a post-knockout cigarette feel like?
Feel amazing.
Smelling like cigarettes up here.
Who's smoking in there?
But man, he backs up all of the antics and fun marketing of his career in that octagon. Carlos Prates is an elite welterweight, and this division has been on fire all year alongside with the middleweight division. And this was a massive bounce-back win for Prates, and I still think he is a very legitimate player in this welterweight division that could be challenging for a title before his career is all said and done. And there are so many potential matchups that you could make for for him moving up this welterweight division. There's already 15 number one contenders in this weight class, including Shavkat Rakhmonov, Sean Brady, Ian Machado Gary, and Michael Morales. Not to mention that the next man that's actually challenging for the belt isn't even a damn welterweight because it's Islam Makhachev. But if I look at the top 10 of this division right now, there's one matchup that absolutely jumps off the page to me, and it is Carlos Prates taking on the number 8 ranked Joaquin Buckley next. Buckley would enter that fight against Prates coming off of a loss to former champion Kamaru Usman in June in Atlanta, but prior to that was on an absolute tear in his own right since moving to the welterweight division, and if you clash him up against Prates, that is an absolute carnage train wreck that will deliver for fight fans all across the world. It's a 5-round fight night main event. It's a huge featured bout on a pay-per-view card. Regardless of where the UFC decides to put it, that is the fight to make next. Joaquin Buckley, Carlos Prates, 8 versus 12, book it. Michael Venom Page picked up his second consecutive win in the middleweight division and his third overall in the UFC, now holding a record of 3-1 since joining the promotion last March, with the only loss being to Ian Gary in a very, very close decision that some would say was controversial. And this second win at middleweight was against Jared Cannonier, the former title challenger who was coming off of a knockout victory in February over the RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez. And this was a very clean performance from Michael Page in rounds 1 and 2, as he would have a knockdown in both of those rounds and just control the pace of the fight and pick apart Cannonier on the feet. However, in round 3, Cannonier would find success by getting Michael Page down onto the mat and landing some ground and pound strikes, but never really putting Page in danger of being finished, so it was a very clear 29-28. And heading into the bout, that's what I felt was going to be the case, because we've seen Jared Cannonier struggle against long-rangey strikers in the past, like his championship fight against Israel Adesanya, so it seemed as though if Page could elude from the power strikes of Cannonier and keep the fight at his distance, he was going to pick his shots en route to a decision, and that's exactly what we saw here. And now the number 15 ranked welterweight MVP will be a top 10 ranked middleweight come Tuesday, at least maybe, because Cannonier was ranked number 9 heading into this bout, and I do believe that Page is deserving of getting that spot. I think he fits very well into this very, very fun middleweight division right now in its current state during this 2025 run that the division is on, and I think there are some very, very fun matchups that you could make, and one that really strikes me is against the former champion, Israel Adesanya. Come on, man. Those two guys are mirror images of one another. Long, rangy, and as technical as you can be from a kickboxing perspective, both in the latter half of their careers, but still have fun fights left to offer. That's the fight that I would make, man. I'm doing Israel Adesanya, the former 2-time champ, versus Michael Venom Page, the longtime Bellator veteran turned hopeful middleweight title challenger, and if he can beat Israel Adesanya, he is well on his way to that. And opening up the main card, we would see another 38-year-old veteran get a victory, and it was Tim Elliott in the flyweight division, who has now won 4 of his last 5 bouts, even though the 38-year-old hadn't even fought since December of 2023, and he came in here after more than a year and a half away and beat another former title challenger, Kai Asakura. Kai, who made his UFC debut after being a Rizin champion against Alexandre Pantoja for the flyweight belt last December, looked so good in the early parts of this fight. He was so fast. He was landing very powerful shots against Tim Elliott, but Elliott, being the durable veteran that he is, was eating those shots like they were nothing, and in round 2 would find success by getting Asakura to the ground and locking in a nasty guillotine choke submission in what would be Tim's 8th career submission. And Tim will now hold his number 11 ranking in the flyweight division, and I believe should face someone ranked ahead of him moving forward. Dare I say even someone like a Kai Kara France, who just challenged for the belt against Pantoja and would be finished. KKF currently sits at number 6, and it's a fresh matchup. 2 guys that have been in the flyweight division for years, but have somehow fought everyone else except for one another. That's the fight to make, and I think you could even do it as a 5-round fight night main event. The UFC reserved its prelim headliner on the ESPN network for the man that just fought 4 days ago on Dana White Contender Series Season 9 Episode 1, and that was Baisangur Susurkaev. and he made his appearance on Dana White Contender Series this past Tuesday on 4 days' notice, and it's only right that he made his UFC debut on 4 days' notice because the UFC would find him an opponent, and it was the reigning Cage Fury fighting welterweight champion Eric Nolan, and they would compete in the middleweight division due to the short notice implications. And after a very fun back and forth 7 minutes of action, Susurkaev would pick up the second round submission over Nolan and improve to 10-0 with 9 of those 10 wins by way of finish. 8 of those are knockouts, and this one was his first ever professional submission. And he is only 24 years of age. He is a training partner of Khamzat Chimaev, and it seems all but certain that the UFC is full steam ahead with this man hailing from Russia. And 7 of his 9 finishes have come in the very first round, so he is a very, very fun fighter to watch. I'm just curious to see how the UFC will look to matchmake him moving forward, because he definitely will be fighting at least one more time before the end of the year. And if he's anything like Khamzat, which he seems to be after taking this UFC debut on 4 days' notice, he may just pick up 2 more fights before the end of 2025. Michal Oleksiejczyuk picked up his 16th career knockout out of his 21 total professional wins, and this time it would come against the OG and all-time leader in submissions for the middleweight division, Gerald Meerschaert. Michal has definitely had his downfalls in the UFC. I mean, just in the promotion alone, he has 7 losses. However, he never fails to be in fun fights, and nearly all of his victories in the promotion have been by way of knockout, and he is still just 30 years of age, so he is right in the middle of his prime, hence why he is now on a 2-fight win streak. And both of them were first round knockouts. He's always going to deliver for the fans, but now I just look forward to seeing if the man hailing from Poland can pick up even more steam and put himself maybe nearer to top 15 territory. Loopy Godinez, the 11th ranked strawweight in the world, and Jessica Andrade, the former champion and number 5 ranked strawweight, had a very fun back and forth 15-minute scrap where Godinez would pick up her second consecutive win and the biggest of her entire career. But it didn't come easy because they would absolutely go toe-to-toe in the striking realm all 15 minutes, with Loopy getting a 29-28 unanimous decision across the board where they would combine to land over 200 strikes and throw over 500. Both of these women always find themselves in barn burners, so we shouldn't have expected anything less when they were matched up against one another. But for Loopy, I am very excited and happy for her. She's one of my favorite female fighters on the roster, and now she will catapult herself into the top 5 title contention category of the women's strawweight division that has a couple of uncertainties regarding the championship right now in Zhang Wei Li. So Loopy now is in a place where she just needs one more win to enter legitimate title contention talk. Alexander Hernandez stopped the 5-0 run that Chase Hooper was on since moving to the lightweight division, and it wasn't just by beating him, it was by knocking him out with 2 seconds remaining in the first round. And the 32-year-old Great Ape may or may not be having a career resurgence because he has now won 3 fights in a row, and this by far was the most convincing of the 3, and now he could potentially just be one more win away from entering or at least challenging against a top 15 lightweight. Hernandez made a big splash in terms of his UFC debut because he knocked out Beneil Dariush in 2018. Then he picked up another win over OAM Olivier Aubin-Mercier, which would then lead to his big fight against Donald Cowboy Cerrone in January of 2019, which was the very first ever ESPN Fight Night card. And all of the trash talk that he had against Cowboy leading into that bit him in the ass, where he would get absolutely destroyed by Cowboy before succumbing to a TKO in the second round. And after that was never able to garner any bit of momentum until where he finds himself present day, hence why I'm saying this may well be a career resurgence, and it is happening during his prime at 32. Karine Silva bounced back from her first UFC loss and holds her spot in the top 15 of the women's flyweight division by getting a decision win over Dione Barbosa, but it was a very closely contested bout. Some were even saying robbery and that it was controversial. So I'm going to open up that discussion to you down in the comments below. What did you make of this fight, and did you think the rightful winner was Silva, or do you think it should have been the witch Barbosa? And last but not least, we saw the Ultimate Fighter flyweight champion be crowned, and it was UFC veteran Joseph Morales who put together quite a run on this season's Ultimate Fighter, and we would cap it off by earning his second stint in the UFC with a second round triangle single choke submission. In terms of his professional record, he's riding a 4-fight win streak with 2 of them by way of submission, and of course he picked up the exhibition wins on the Ultimate Fighter this year as well. But we can't forget that he had that first stint in the UFC from August of 2017 to November of 2018 that featured 3 fights. He won his debut via submission, similar to his second debut, but would then lose back-to-back fights. But it was Deiveson Figueiredo, for one, who would go on after that to become the flyweight champion, and then lose a very close split decision to Eric Shelton, who isn't even in the UFC anymore. So it's a great full circle moment and story for Joseph Morales, who is now back in the UFC, and he is still in his prime because he's 30 years old. All in all, he is 13-2, and he's finished 9 of his 13 wins with 7 submissions and 2 knockouts. He's going to be a very fun addition, or should I say, re-addition to the flyweight division. So that is it for the UFC 319 recap, and I want to get all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Give me your biggest takeaways and matchmake for some of the big winners and even some of the losers as well. If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because we are on the road to reaching 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and any and all support is greatly appreciated. Alongside recaps of the most meaningful results from every card, I also break down and preview the best fights heading into each card, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platform such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video.